If you'd like to turn in your Bibles to John chapter 4. John chapter 4. If you've ever wondered why Jesus came where he did, when he did, if the woman at the well would have happened today here, it would have been frozen. So that would not have been any good for anybody. I try to come up with some great analogy every time we do this for what it would be like between the Jews and the Samaritans in their day, and the kind of tension that was there to the point that if you're a Jew, you avoid Samaria just altogether. And I was thinking this past week, I went up to Costco in Moore to get some rotisserie chickens, which are like the best thing ever. And I had some other things to do in town too, but I went by there to do that, and I thought, what would it be like if I were an Oklahoma State fan? I'm not converting, by the way, but if I were an Oklahoma State fan, there are some of you here. I already see some of those. If I was one of those, and I thought, I want to go to Costco in Moore, but I will not go through Norman. I mean, I'm nothing to do with those people, and so I'm going to have to either, get up to where the casino is there and go around to the west side, or I'm going to have to go up 3W and then come across at Shawnee and then back down again somehow. But I am not going through Norman to get to Moore. That's how the Jews felt about Samaria. It was not just this clash of cultures and religious backgrounds and all of those things. It was even, and understand, by the way, not going in cars with heaters on days like today, but walking, or maybe riding along on some sort of animal if you had one, but they would just totally avoid that area. So when we see Jesus there in Samaria, there is a significance to what's going to happen, the fact that he chooses to be there. So John chapter 4, we're going to start in verse 1, says that when Jesus learned that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus was making and baptizing more disciples than John, although Jesus himself did not baptize, but only his disciples, he left Judea and departed again for Galilee. So the Pharisees have learned that Jesus is becoming more popular. Anybody that has too much of a following is a concern of theirs. And so Jesus feels like, okay, I've done kind of what I can do here for now. I'm going to go to a different place now. So he's going to go to Galilee. And what he is doing is God's mission. Now, I get that that's what he's doing by being on earth in the first place, and he's always on mission with God. But what we can learn, and there's lots of things in John 4 that we could take, but what I want us to see in John 4 today is God's mission at work, and how the tendency is that in the world in which we live, there are a lot of things that try to get between us and God's mission. And if you have been around long enough, if you knew Flip Wilson in class this morning, if you've been around long enough, you understand that list of things that gets between you and the mission of God seems to get longer and longer and longer every year. And it seems like as you look around you in the world, it just kind of slaps you in the face sometimes. And so Jesus, as he gets into God's mission here in John chapter 4, I think will encounter a lot of things that would normally get in the way. And yet we'll see how God's mission overcomes those things. So in verse 4, it says, and he had to pass through Samaria. And again, Jews just didn't do that. So the he had to is something a little different than just it's the way to get from point A to point B. There's a reason he's going through Samaria. And I believe it's because God's mission overcomes borders. Or if we want to think of divisions that are political divisions, or divisions that are ethnic or national type divisions, or maybe even with the Samaritans as we consider their religious issues they had between them, God is not going to let those things stand between him and the people he wants to reach. And so for us, we may have a lot of people in mind that we think, those people couldn't be more different than I am. As I was sitting at a red light trying to get to the Costco there in Moore the other day, the car in front of me, some kind of a small compact car, I don't remember exactly what it was, Toyota, Honda, like a little one, and on the back, it had a hatchback, and there was, I'm pretty sure, every bumper sticker that has ever been made right there on the back of that car. You could see through a little spot on the window in the back, but I mean, it was even on the window. Back of the car, hatchback, bumper, everywhere, all these stickers. And I thought to myself, as I'm sitting there trying to read through all of them before the light changes to see what all this guy's got going on, what would it be like to sit down and have a conversation with this bumper sticker guy? because he is about as far from me when it comes to what you do to your car as I can get. And as I started reading bumper stickers, I began to realize he's also about as far from me on a whole lot of other things as you can get. And I thought to myself, if I were to sit down with this guy, what would that conversation be like? And it could be interesting, it could be frustrating, it could be entertaining, I don't know. But I also wonder if I knew that guy, if I saw that guy get out of the car and he was going to Costco too, and we sat down at the food court and we were both eating the Costco hot dog and Pepsi for $1.50, would I have a conversation with this guy and what would that be like? And so for Jesus, as he is coming through Samaria, the borders are not an issue for him. Those things that divide people are not an issue for him. We'll get to another one here in just a second. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. So also, just real quickly to take note, there's something significant to Jews here in this place, and they still avoid it. If there was something significant to your history in a place, but you really didn't like the people who were there, I know we're supposed to like everybody, but if society told you you're not supposed to like the people there, would you still avoid it, not to go see whatever that thing is, to be in that place? So the Jews, even though Jacob's well, Israel's well is right there, the people of Israel avoid this place. So the well is there. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour, kind of middle of the day, noonish if I remember right. It's the 6th hour. He sits there wearied from his journey. God's mission overcomes weariness. Have you ever found yourself thinking, I'm just too worn out to do whatever this is? Maybe you have, you're here today, but maybe sometime you've had a time where you've thought, I'm so worn out, I'm not going to be at church today. I'm so worn out, I'm not going to go participate in whatever this thing is that's going on. Someone needs my help with something, but I'm worn down. It's been a long day. Someone wants to talk, and you see their number on the caller ID, and you think, oh, do I want to do this right now? I'm so worn out, everything that's going on. Jesus, who is tired from the day and sits down, and if we were just reading through a book, not knowing the story, we would think, it's just a time for rest. He's sitting in a place, he's had a journey, he just wants to sit down and rest, and yet God's mission, it doesn't stop, does it? It's always ongoing, and you don't know when those opportunities are going to arise. So even when we're tired, we need to be aware of what's going on, what God has in store. So a woman from Samaria came to draw water. And just another quick aside here. Women in that day and time, who would frequently be the ones to go to the well and draw water, did not do that in the heat of the day because women are more intelligent than that. They're not going to go out there at the hottest part of the day. I've told you before, when I was a kid, my grandfather used to mow the lawn at the absolute hottest part of the day. He would mow it in his plain white undershirt, and when he would come in, he was just drenched. I mean, he would come in, and sometimes he would wring the shirt out because he was, and I thought, mowing the lawn must be the most unpleasant thing on earth to do, as I was a kid growing up, not understanding you don't have to do it in South Alabama at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when it's 100 degrees. You could do it in the morning, or you could do it in the evening at a different time. The women did not come to the well at this time, which leads us to infer, if we're not going to step too far, that she may be there in the heat of the day because she doesn't want company. She wants to, and maybe you have been like this too. You have been in a place where you think, I need to go to this place. There's something I want to do. I hope I don't see anyone there. Went to Walmart yesterday, having not showered in the morning, threw a hat on, went in to do my shopping, and I thought, I hope I don't see anyone today that I know from church. Then someone in pajamas walks by me, and I thought it'd probably be okay. This woman doesn't want to be seen. Not because of what she's wearing, but because of what we're going to learn about her. She wants to get in, wants to get out. I worry sometimes, do people approach church this way? There are a lot of folks, and if I'm picking on you, I'll pick on you for a minute, but there are a lot of folks that want to get in and out as quick as possible. I spent, as a freshman in college, I spent a year going to the college church in Searcy, Arkansas, where there were 1,500 people. And I sat on the second to last row of the balcony because there was an old guy who always got the back row first because he could sleep with his head against the wall, I learned later on. I got up there, and I would come in a little late, and I would leave as quickly as I could. because I was just trying to go to church and I didn't want to connect. I just wanted to be there. I didn't want anyone to know me well enough to know if I wasn't there, and I just wanted to do what I had to do and move on. And somewhere along the way, I began to realize, I don't think this is how church is supposed to work. I think there's supposed to be something more to it than that. And so if you do church like this woman is doing in the well, I hope you'll think that maybe the reason you're not as connected as you would like to be is you're trying not to be as connected as you'd like to be, or maybe you really are as connected as you want to be, and we need to be more connected. So she comes to the well to get the water. Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." And another quick aside, Jewish men in this day and time didn't do this. You did not talk to women at wells or anywhere else if you were a Jewish man by yourself, because it could be misconstrued. And so Jesus is breaking all kinds of barriers here. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans." So God's mission also overcomes social divisions. And I don't know what this is for all of us, guy with all the bumper stickers. I don't know if it's people you see around town and you think to yourself, those people are at such a different place than I am. I don't know if you see people commenting on things online and you think, what's up with these people? I don't feel like we are constantly making judgments about who we are and how we're better than someone else. But at the same time, I think we have probably all encountered people that are very, very different than us, and people that society would not put together in the same place. One of my favorite things about church, and I like a lot about church, but one of my favorite things is, could you imagine another circumstance that would put this group of people together? I mean, we have everything you can imagine here. We've got professional horse guys and law enforcement people and teachers and administrators and band directors and retired folks and all of these folks who are here doing all of these different things, and yet here we are, brought together by God, overcoming any division there might have been otherwise. And so Jesus is not interested in the division here. He is interested in the person. And if there is maybe one takeaway, there are a lot of takeaways from John 4, but maybe one of the big ones for us is to be reminded, as David said during the communion talk, the idea that God loved us that much. He's not interested in the divisions. He's interested in the people. He wants to get to the core of the people. His mission is to get to you and to get to the people around us. So Jesus answered her, verse 10, "If you knew the gift of God," man, don't you want to start the conversations with the people of the world that way? If you just knew this isn't about us thinking we're better than you, if you just knew this isn't about us thinking less of you, if you just knew that it's not about all of the things in your life you need to correct, although that comes with time, if you just knew that this is about God and who he is and what he wants of you, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, "Give me a drink," you would have asked him and he would have given you living water. And the woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock." God's mission also overcomes excuses. And this is what we'll find, by the way, when we encounter those people that are different than us, people that don't understand why we're here. They will have all of the reasons why this doesn't make sense. You understand that men wrote that book, right? That you say is God's book, and we'll try to explain inspiration and stuff like that. You understand that this or that or the other about God that they just kind of assume. They'll have so many reasons why a relationship with God doesn't make sense to them, or that God himself doesn't make sense to them. And this woman's the same way. She understands the idea of God, and yet there's all these things about how's this water thing going to work, and she has all the reasons why it can't. And a lot of us have probably been there with different things along the way. All the reasons why when someone asks you to help with something in the mission of God, you have reasons why it shouldn't be you. We become little Moseses back in the book of Exodus, where somebody's a better speaker, and God shouldn't be somebody else, and God, who am I going to tell him sent me? And we have all the reasons. And so this woman has all the reasons why none of this should make sense. And yet Jesus keeps going. He said to her in verse 13, "Everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water welling up to eternal life. And another quick aside, isn't it great how Jesus makes all these connections with things that people understand? There are things about God that your friends that you want to tell about God don't get, but there are a lot of things that within God's created world that make a whole lot more sense. And Jesus is just so skilled at using those. And my guess is probably a lot of us are too, we just don't do it a lot. So he explains this whole thing about water and being thirsty and not being thirsty. And the woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water." Laser focused, didn't she? It's all about water. It's all about the well. It's all about what she has come there to do. It is hard to get people away from that sometimes. And if we're honest with ourselves, it's hard to get us away from that sometimes, isn't it? If I had sat down with bumper sticker guy at Costco to have hot dogs, I guarantee you I am coming into that conversation with some assumptions about what I think this guy is going to be like. And he could be exactly that, or he could completely prove me wrong. I have no idea without having the conversation. And so she is so focused in on water that she just can't get away from it. Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." And the woman answered him, "I have no husband." And Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband. What you have said is true." Now, clearly, we don't know the story of the 5. It could be 5 husbands that she has left one for the next one every single time. It could be 5 husbands where every one of them was abusive or adulterous. It could be anything in between those things. What we do know is number 6 is an issue, and that this is not something that should be going on. And so Jesus tells her this thing that she should not know. And I think we need to realize that God's mission overcomes sin. How many people would assume, especially in the day and time of Jesus, that if this is the way this woman lives relationally, sexually, in all those ways, she's probably too far gone to have this conversation? Do we write people off sometimes if we're not careful? Just assuming this person's value system is so far away, their lifestyle is so far gone, they are not reachable. And I don't know that not reachable is in Jesus' vocabulary. There is no one he encounters that he looks at and says, not reachable. Even as antagonistic as things get with the Pharisees at times, I would imagine Jesus would love the idea of Pharisees coming around. And so for this woman, he says to her, okay, we've been talking water to this point. Now let's get to something real, something serious, something that matters, and understand that this thing that you believe to be hidden, this thing you think no one really understands or knows about, or this thing you think that those who do know about, you can just avoid them by showing up here at noon instead of when everybody else comes out here. I know, and God knows, and something needs to be different in your life. So the woman said to him, "Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshipped on this mountain, but you say that in Jerusalem is the place where people ought to worship." So the mission of God also overcomes confusion and it overcomes ignorance. And we'll see confusion roll around here again in just a minute. But specifically the idea of ignorance. And ignorance, by the way, is almost a bad word in our culture nowadays. We take it as an insult. Ignorance at its core just means you don't know something. And I would imagine, again, if we're honest with ourselves, there are a lot of things that we don't know about. I learned this morning that if it gets too cold, diesel in your truck can get messed up. I had no idea. Luckily, I don't have a diesel truck and I'm here. But I learn things I don't know all the time. And so this woman says, this is what I thought it's supposed to be, and now I don't know what to make. And she thinks, here is a guy who knows things, and I want to talk to him about those things. And for us, there will likely always be things that we don't quite completely understand. Sometimes it's because we just don't know. Sometimes it's because we're confused about it, or we've changed our mind about it, or somebody has told us a different thing about it. And God's mission, that's not going to get in the way of that. So if you, we'll have an invitation here in a little while, not yet, don't get too excited. We'll have an invitation, and if you decide, I'd really like to respond to the message of Christ, I'd like to be baptized, but I don't have all this figured out yet, welcome to the club. We all don't have all of this figured out yet. There are things we know and we know really well, but there are other things that are just kind of confusing, other things that we don't know. And so she begins to ask these questions of things we don't know about where is the right place to worship. So Jesus said to her, verse 21, "Woman, believe me, the hour is coming when neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem will you worship the Father." In the Brian Lewis version, would have in parentheses here, all the way in Ada, Oklahoma, you will worship. It'll be everywhere. You worship what you do not know. We worship what we know, for salvation is from the Jews. And just a little kind of prod to the Samaritan woman here of something you don't want to hear, but it's going to lead somewhere. "But the hour is coming and now is here when true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such people to worship him." I have glossed over this verse so many times when I've read this story. I can't tell you how many times I've read John 4 or heard it preached about. Almost missed this here. The Father is seeking such people. A week or two ago, the sermon, if you remember the titles, I know you do, what are you seeking? We think about things that we seek, things that we look for, things that we want to find. I sought out my gloves this morning because it's cold outside. What do you look for? Things that are really important, things that really matter. He is seeking people to worship him in spirit and in truth. He is seeking people like we want to be this morning. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth. And of all people, to the Samaritan woman, the message comes down that God is here. The woman said to him, "I know that the Messiah is coming. He who is called Christ, when he comes, he will tell us these things." And Jesus said to her, "I who speak to you am he." God is spirit, God is truth, and God is here. The Savior, the Messiah that you have heard about for generations is sitting here at this well where you've tried to avoid people. He has sought you out. And for us, when we're trying to avoid, when we're trying to just be on our own and feel like we can do these things without God, God is seeking us out. For us, when we have a list of sins that we don't want anyone to know about, God knows it, and he is seeking you out anyway. And so God is here at this well. Just then his disciples came back. I always love when the disciples show up. You never know what's going to happen. They marveled that he was talking with a woman, but no one said, "What do you seek?" or "Why are you talking with her?" How many times have we seen this unfold in life where someone is doing something and you know that there are people that are there who want to say something about what's going on, but no one knows exactly what to say. And so they're watching all of this and they're thinking, okay, we're in Samaria in the first place. We don't feel too good about that. He's sitting here at this well talking with this. We don't talk to women. We don't talk to Samaritan women. And once they learn what she's about, they're probably even more perplexed by that. And so here he is sitting. They're not sure what to make of it. God's mission overcomes the naysayers. Everyone you know will have an opinion. And sometimes when you want to live a godly life, there are people who will be saying, whether they say it to you or behind your back, that none of those things matter. Why do you bother with that stuff? Or there are people who will say, "Oh, I know what they're really like. I know the sin problem they really have. And this is all fake. This is hypocritical what they're doing." And they will give you any number of things, any number of reasons why living this life for Christ is not going to work for you. And God is not interested in that. God is interested in you, and honestly, and them too. But whatever their naysaying is, that's not enough to stand between you and the mission of God. So even though the disciples, they all have these opinions about what's going on, Jesus just keeps on keeping on. So the woman left her water jar and went away into the town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me all that I ever did. Can this be the Christ?" And they went out of the town and were coming to him. God's mission is for everyone. And I love the way this story happens. It is not her grabbing Jesus by the hand to go find people and have him tell them about everything. She goes and finds the people and tells them. This woman who wanted nothing more than to be left alone moments ago is now seeking people out because what she is hearing is too good to keep to herself. Think about how much more you know right now about God, about his son, about how the story turns out than she knew as she sat at the well and then got up and went into town. If she could not help but tell people, shouldn't we be the same? Shouldn't we desperately want to tell other people about what God has done? God's mission is for all of us. It is not for a select few to do. It is for each of us to take a piece of. Meanwhile, verse 31, the disciples were urging him, "Rabbi, eat." But he said to them, "I have food to eat that you do not know about." So the disciples said to one another, "Has anyone brought him something to eat?" And Jesus said to them, "My food is to do the will of him who sent me to accomplish his work. Do you not say, 'There are yet 4 months, then comes the harvest'? Look, I tell you, lift up your eyes and see that the fields are white for the harvest." I wonder how many times when we look around and say, the world has gone mad and everything's such a mess and why can't it be fixed? If God doesn't want to say back to us, see, the fields are white for the harvest. There is a world out there to be reached. And instead of looking at that as a problem all of the time, it needs to be a work, a mission that we do. Already the one who reaps is receiving wages and gathering fruit for eternal life, so that sower and reaper may rejoice together. For here the saying holds true, one sows and another reaps. We just play that kind of sowing role in things as we begin to tell the message. It is God who is going to make the harvest happen. I sent you to reap that for which you did not labor. Others have labored, and you have entered into their labor. And when you talk to someone and you feel like there is no fruit coming of it, who knows if you are the one who is going to see that? Or if somewhere down the road someone else begins to take on that too, and then things in their life begin to change. Many Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me all that I ever did. So when the Samaritans came to him, they asked him to stay with them, and he stayed there 2 days. And many more believed because of his word. They said to the woman, "It is no longer because of what you said that we believe, for we have heard for ourselves, and we know that this is indeed the Savior of the world." God's mission is to save, first and foremost. Are there a lot of other things within God's missions, other things that we could describe? Sure. But what is the main point of all of this? He wants to save. He wants for as many people as possible to come to him, and he has given us the task of getting that message around. This morning, if you have never followed God, know that he has been seeking you all along. And if you feel forgotten or unknown or alone, you are not. There is a God who loves you so much, he sent his son for you, and he has been looking for you to follow him. You can follow him today, you can be baptized into him, and you can become a part of the church family and be a part of his mission too. Or today, if you have walked away from that, you can come back to him. Know that his mission is to continue to look for you when you've fallen away. He wants you back. He wants you to be with him forever. If there's some way we can help you this morning, one of our elders will be in the back, or you can come forward here as we stand and as we sing.